Hi there. Welcome to Pallet University, and sort of a weird add-on to our Giving Every Pokemon a Scientific Name series. I feel like in the past I called it Gotta Name 'Em All, and that might still work. If you have a better idea for a smoother name for this series, please let me know. So if you missed the episode that went up earlier in this week, we're sort of go back and redo a couple of the ones that I did previously. So for example, any Kanto or Johto Pokemon that got Galarian forms, I talked about them, as well as I also changed a little bit for the legendary birds. So if you haven't seen that, make sure to go check that out. That went out earlier this week. But today, we're actually talking about a resource that was pointed out to me on the sort of renewal of this series, where I talk about sort of the last part of the Johto Pokedex, by someone in the comments. And I forget the actual name of the person who the person who commented it, but it'll be up on screen. They actually have a YouTube channel themselves. It is all unfortunately in Spanish, I think. I'm pretty sure it's Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but if you do, it seems like a really neat channel, so you should definitely go check that out. I'll link the channel below. But anyway, this is a resource that person linked that has lots of really interesting, albeit things that I disagree with, bits of information. It's called Theworldofpokemon.com. And so there's, as you can see, lots and lots of different stuff on here. So there's just general news, lots of, it's basically sort of a science, almost Wikipedia type page for Pokemon, but different than like Bulbapedia, and then it treats Pokemon like real animals. So for example, we'll click on Kanto, just for an example, and then we'll get into what I actually want to talk about. But then we click on Bulbasaur, it talks about habitat, overview, just some general things. There's general stuff like, or more specific things. So, as far as I know, yeah, so they actually list some things like that I've sort of been talking about with my pets series as well, where it's like, has some care information, some diet stuff, some things to look out for, behavior type things. So it's really interesting. This is a really neat site that I'm going to be spending a lot of time on in the future, but the thing that I want to talk about specifically today is the taxonomy. So, for anybody not familiar, taxonomy is basically what I'm doing when I'm giving things scientific names. Taxonomy is the study of naming things. And so, as well as, it's very closely tied to the study of systematics, which is figuring out how closely different organisms are related to each other. So, they go through, whoever happens to operate this site, goes through and gives every Pokemon a scientific name. However, they do it in a way that I don't agree with, in that they put Pokemon in already existing groups, which is something that I purposefully don't do. I don't include any higher taxonomy. So let's get to things that I am more familiar with, because right now these are plants, and I'm not very familiar with plants. So they do, to their credit, have a separate group for Pokemon that don't appear to really fit. I'm guessing that this is sort of their version of Animalia, instead of the kingdom Animalia. But, for example, let's see, Nidaria, Anthozoa, Scleractinia. I don't know if this specifically is a real group, but let's check it out. Yeah, that is a real group. So, they put Corsola, and I'm assuming that this is also a real genus. Yeah, that is a real genus. So they put Corsola in a real genus of real coral, which I don't personally agree with. So, for example, like in all of my stuff that I've done with giving everything a scientific name, I've only done genus species, because Pokemon are not what they are based on. A Growlithe is not a dog. It is a Growlithe. It is not the thing that it's based on. With very, very few exceptions that you could sort of argue, things like Tauros, which is literally just a bull. what are some other examples? I guess similarly, Bouffalant, literally just a bison. So there are some Pokemon that I can see this being justified for, but especially if you're not even if you're going to call them not animals, I'm confused in why they still felt the need to give them the same taxonomic things as Pokemon. So I thought I would just put this out there. You know, I'm not going to go through nearly every. I'm not going to go through all of these because they really do go through and put every single Pokemon in a similar fashion that I do, where they just talk about Jellicent, not Frillish. You know, they talk about Tentacruel, but not Tentacool. They lump an evolutionary line together. But I actually want to see, while I'm here, I might as well look at, see if I can find a split evolution. Okay, so for that, they just do the base form, so Poliwag instead of, you know, Poliwhirl, or Poliwrath and Politoad. Same thing with Slowpoke right here. So I think I'll just go through and sort of look at where they put some of these Pokemon. So some really interesting choices they seem to have made. I've only gotten through the fish, just because I don't really want to do anything like below fish. Like I said, my invertebrate taxonomy is not very good. Just some interesting things though. So they put Seeking and Gyarados in the same family, which it seems like they're actually going off of the larval, quote unquote, form of Pokemon, the base form, which is really interesting. And I don't know if they have a specific, I'd love to sit down and just have a chat with the people who actually run this. So if they happen to see it, let me know. But so for that, I'll try to understand the thought process there, because Magikarp is very clearly a carp, which are pretty closely related to like goldfish. So in that sense, I get it. However, Milotic, they put in this genus Heliolisk, which is the giant oarfish, which you might know from playing Animal Crossing. Anyway, very, very large fish. One of the largest bony fish that exists. Like 30 plus feet long. Not unheard of. But they, which is really interesting because Feebas clearly is not that. I think Feebas has been stated to have been based off of like the largemouth bass, which is not even closely related to oarfish. So I'm curious just about their thought process and sort of if they have a set of like a specific set of rules, or if they just do it sort of a case-by-case basis. This sort of gets into the whole, the big reason why I don't do any higher taxonomy other than genus and species, so I don't do family or order for any of my taxonomy stuff, because we don't have enough information. We don't. You know, it'd be cool if we were somehow given a skeleton of every Pokemon, but we're not. And short of that, I as a scientist, like, yeah, I'm granted this is all theory mining. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But I just wouldn't feel good, you know, doing this without doing some kind of phylogenetic analysis. And certainly I would not give them already existing names, you know, especially when some of them don't seem to fit. So let's look at, let's find something that doesn't seem to quite fit what the Pokemon actually is, but does fit the animal. So here's one. So for example, Quillfish, they place in the genus Tetraodon, which is a genus of pufferfish. However, that means four tooth. You know, tetra meaning four, similar to tetrapod, which are, you know, all of your land-dwelling vertebrates. Means four. Pod means feet, 4 feet. So Tetraodon means 4 teeth, which Quillfish does not appear to have any teeth. Interesting. So it doesn't appear that they do that for every Pokemon, that they place them in already existing genus, because at least for Dunsparce, there is no genus Burrow. I looked it up, I tried to find it, I could not find it. This family itself does not exist to my knowledge. Yeah, it does not look like it exists. So they do that with some Pokemon, but not others. And I feel like with Dunsparce, I feel like that'd be very hard to do, because it's basically, it's a yokai is what it's based off of, but its morphology is sort of like a snake, but it's like there's no snake with, you know, a drill for a tail and little tiny wings that let it float above the ground. I guess that's also true with Dragonite, and I don't believe that this is in existing genus. No. So, because the actual name of the group that includes snakes is called Serpentes, not Serpenta, and it's a larger clade, maybe a suborder? I don't know that for sure. Either way, Serpenta does not seem to be a taxonomic group that exists. So they do that with seemingly more mythical theming Pokemon, but not all Pokemon, weirdly. So here's one that I don't think that they knew that there was an actual genus of this. So they have the family Draconidae and the genus Draco. The genus Draco does exist. It is these flying lizards, which they're not truly flying. They just have some weird skin flaps that they can stretch out and glide from tree to tree. But that genus does exist. And it is not in the family Draconidae. That doesn't exist. There is the subfamily Draconinae instead of Draconidae. That does exist. So again, I think this is just, I'd love to sit down with these folks and just sort of have a chat. Just sort of have a chat with them and talk about some of their thought processes that they go through when they gave these Pokemon names. And then there's some that just don't seem to make much sense to me, such as Heliolisk. So Heliolisk, to me, is very clearly a frilled lizard. It's a species of agamid lizard that's native to Australia, and a couple of the oceanic islands north of Australia. However, they give it the genus Basiliscus, which is the basilisk lizard, the kind that are famous for running on water, which are, native to South and Central America. And again, I'm just not sure what the rationale is. It does kind of look like a basilisk lizard a little bit, but like its whole thing is that it's got this big frill that catches the sun. And the only agamid lizard that they have is something that I would not even call a lizard. I would call Toxtricity an amphibian, personally. But is this an existing genus? I've not looked yet. Let's look. Okay, it is the Thorny Devil. Okay, so it's a species of lizard that has got all these thorns and stuff on it. Interesting. That's definitely not what I would call Toxtricity. But I can see the justification. It does have some sort of spines on its back, so I guess that's not totally out of the ordinary. See, and then they do this, which I like, and I want to be very clear. I'm not trying to just completely destroy everything that these people are doing. Obviously, it's a super cool resource that is really fun, and obviously there's a ton of information here. Everything else that I've seen on the site looks really, really cool, but the taxonomy is just stuff that I don't personally agree with. So they create a new family that doesn't exist, a new genus, obviously, and then they place Licky Licky and Magmortar in it as different species in the same genus, which I don't see any real justification for, personally. Let me know if you see that, because granted, I don't know where I would really put Magmar and Magmortar. Most people are like, oh, they have a duck bill, it's clearly a duck. But no. It's not a duck. It's not really like anything that we have, which, you know, makes sense why they would give it a new family, but why would its closest relative be Licky Licky? That I don't see at all. Man. And then also just scrolling down, like the more I scroll down, the more I'm like, what is this? They put Aggron in Triceratops, which, I mean, also, no. Like, the biggest reason why I've avoided putting things in already existing genera, which is the plural of genus, is that a genus or any scientific group have things called synapomorphies, which are basically, alright, a couple of boxes. If you check them, cool, you are in this group. And that includes things like genera, species, every clade, every rank in taxonomy has those, boxes. And as you get smaller from, say, family level or order level, as you get smaller down to species, those boxes get more and more specific. And so placing Aggron in Triceratops makes literally no sense to me, because Triceratops, one of the, it doesn't even fit most of the like ceratopsian things, in that it needs a frill and a beak and no front teeth. They do have teeth in the back, but Aggron doesn't really fit that at all. And frankly, neither does Bastiodon. Bastiodon does a little bit. I don't think there's an actual genus called Ceratops, but I'm gonna look. Not to my knowledge. Oh, there is. Okay, I didn't know that. Interesting. Oh, it's relatively old too. Must not be one that we have a ton of samples of. Anywho, but yeah, I don't know. That's the biggest reason why I just don't personally really like putting, Pokemon, these made-up creatures, into the same groups as already existing animals, because they don't have those synapomorphies, or at least if they do, we can't tell because we don't have enough information. And I think that's part of doing responsible science, is telling, being very open about when you don't have enough information. So, if and when, and I fully plan to, I get back up the species, the phylogenetic series, where I tried myself to make a Pokemon Tree of Life using actual software that paleontologists and evolutionary biologists use. I'm going to be very forthright in saying we don't have enough information to make whatever conclusion I'm trying to make. And again, granted, maybe it's just because I'm a paleontologist and I nerd out about dinosaurs, but placing Duraludon as a Tyrannosaurus, there's literally zero justification for that. And so it's literally made of metal. See, now we're getting into the types of animals that I actually work with, and I'm getting slightly offended. Once again, I'm not trying to downplay. This probably took a lot of work. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. And again, super cool resource. However, if you want to call Mudsdale Equus, okay, that's probably fair. I don't know, being electrically generative, being able to generate electricity is a very unique and pretty distinct trait. I would not put Zebstrika in Equus. I would also not put Rapidash in Equus because it's literally on fire and has a horn. Neither of which horses have. But the one that gets me a lot is Hypno, in that, yes, very clearly, Drowsy at least is based off of a taper. Sure. When it gets to Hypno, it literally has no taper features whatsoever. It doesn't even have the trunk nose. It has a big nose, but it's not like a trunk nose. It also has 5 fingers and is bipedal. How does that fit any of the synapomorphies of the genus Tapirus. So here actually is where I think this gets actually the most interesting myself, in that Pokemon that do not fit into what we would consider life. So he terms this probably kingdom as Anaturia, or Anatura. And then further breaks it down into like mineral-like Pokemon. And I really can't, give a bunch of hate for this, because I myself haven't come up with a good way to name, abiotic Pokemon. So for example, I think I did give Golem a name. I can tell you right now, I will not be naming Unknown. Or I don't think that I picked named Unknown. I'm actually gonna look to see if I did or not. I don't know. I did give Unknown a name. Fun fact. I should get a little bit more brushed up on the things that I've actually done before I start talking. But again, these I kind of disagree with like saying that Steelix isn't the same genus as Probopass, just because again, what are those synapomorphies? Tell me them. If you want to place things in the same group, they need to have things in common. And I really don't think that type is something that you can really group Pokemon based off of. Just because there are so many Pokemon that are very clearly so similar, but have very different types, such as the horses. Rapidash, Electric, Zebstrika, and Mudsdale. Very different types. But yet they're all clearly related rather closely, So that makes way more sense of calling them the same genus than Steelix and Probopass, or Sudowoodo and Stonejourner. I just don't personally see that at all. So I could go on and on, sort of giving my thoughts about this, and generally sounding negative, but I really don't want to come off that way. And so I am going to talk quickly, about some of the care things on here that I think are really good, because we have already at this point had our Charizard video up about pets. So let's take a look at their research notes, including their scientific name for the Charmander line, and some of their stuff. So Charizard is the only Pokemon in the group Draconidae that are not Dragon types. Scientists are not quite sure why that is. In the past, it's believed that they were the missing link, which is a real misnomer. That there's no such thing as like a missing link. Evolution doesn't happen that way. Between Draconians and Squamatins, that's not the proper use of that. They're called Squamates. Like the order, is it even an order? Reptile taxonomy changes so often. I don't know anymore. Is it in order? It is in order. So the order is Squamata, but when you refer to them as a group, they are Squamates. And similarly, when you refer to a family as a whole, because this is a family because it ends in IDAE, you would refer to them as Draconids. So between Draconids and Squamates, having evolved some characteristics of Draconids, like wings, and yet not others, like the Dragon type, however, DNA researchers, geneticists, have found that Charizard, in fact, have segments of DNA that do code for Dragon type, but are repressed in normal development. See, that's pretty neat. This is purely headcanon. But I think that's pretty neat, because obviously you talked about Mega Evolution. But in certain circumstances, most notably during one form of Mega Evolution, the sequence can be expressed as the Pokemon gain their lost typing. All members of the Charmander line are technically omnivorous, however, each successive stage holds more distinctive preference for meat, which makes more sense. Actually, generally, reptiles kind of do the opposite. For example, with bearded dragons, juveniles will eat a lot of insects. Like if you get a pet bearded dragon, you still feed your juvenile bearded dragons things like leafy greens, stuff like that. But you will feed them more insects as well. And then as they get older, you feed them less insects just because they need that extra protein while they're growing. With Charizard being totally carnivorous if allowed to. Oddly, despite being unable to approach water, Charizard seemed to particularly enjoy fish. Okay. The most basic precaution to take when raising Charmander is to ensure that all water resources are either sealed or in hard-to-reach places, as young Charmander can be very curious. So they treat them almost like a child, instead of like a pet. Although Charmeleon may refuse to eat food from their caretakers at times, trainers are advised to leave food out for them anyways, because they will get hungry eventually. Finally, Charizard require plenty of open space so they can fly freely, and also greatly dislike humid weather. Caution. The most pressing concern with Charmander evolution lines is the open flame on their tails. While they may not always be fully aware of how they swing their appendages, and may accidentally light things on fire from time to time, Charmeleon may lash out physically at times, including at their trainers, or physically at others, including their trainers, while having mood swings. It is best to give them plenty of space and leave them be when this happens, as they will calm down with time. And then some behavior stuff. So Charmander are curious Pokemon. Tend to be unafraid of humans. They may approach travelers to investigate them. They may either fight or flee when they sense danger. I have no idea what this... Is that a citation? It is a citation. Oh, so there's a whole key. So again, like I said, this is a very detailed website, and they do a lot of things super, super well. Their taxonomy, just in my opinion, is not one of the things that they do very well. They may either flee or fight when they sense danger. Charmeleon are territorial Pokemon. They dislike humans on their territory and will act aggressively toward them. They tend to fight when they sense danger. Charizard are also territorial Pokemon. They dislike humans in their territory. Oh, exact same description. They almost always fight when they sense danger. Yeah, so again, lots of cool stuff on this site. And if you want to check out the taxonomy and learn more about real-world taxonomy, this is a cool thing. However, when it comes to actually describing Pokemon by their characteristics, not so much. So once again, a really big shout out to the person who recommended this. Once again, I'll throw the comment up on screen. So please check out their channel. It's really cool if you happen to speak and understand Spanish. Also check out this website, because like I said, there's lots of cool stuff. It'll be linked down in the description as well. There's lots of cool stuff. And there's, Pokemon by region, obviously, which is, one of the most basic things. Research notes is a really cool thing. So they have just general research things about, oh, that's what all of this stuff was research notes about all these different Pokemon. Which I think is really, really interesting. And granted, a lot of it is headcanon, but I mean, it's a video game. People are allowed to have headcanon if they want to. Make sure to follow me on Twitter as well at Pallet_you to keep up on all things Pokemon science, as well as if you feel like our content is worthy of supporting financially, we do have a Patreon, the link to which will be down in the description as well. Big shout out to our patron over at Patreon, Patty Murphy. Thank you for support. And also, if you have supported us on Patreon, I'm recording this video about 2 weeks before it goes out. So if you have since supported us, thank you as well. I greatly appreciate you. And lastly, thank you so much for watching. And I guess, as always, there's a time and place for everything.